Hello students, so today we are going to start a new chapter, that is metals and non-metals. And before we can talk about metals and non-metals in particular, we'll ponder on this periodic table. This is the modern periodic table, as you can see on the slide. Now this periodic table has been divided into three different sections, so towards my left in the slide, towards the left, most of them are considered to be metals. You can see the arrows, those all are considered to be metals. And then we have the metalloids, those 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 of them, these are metalloids: boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, tellurium, polonium. Polonium is sometimes considered as metal also. Then we have non-metals towards the right. So basically between the metals and the non-metals we have the metalloids. Now we'll talk about the difference between metals and non-metals. And while we discuss the difference between metals and non-metals, we will be talking about the physical properties. Now first of all, before things begin, you can see on top there is this definition of valency. Can you see? So valency, this definition must be memorized by all and understood. Now we'll discuss valency even more in detail when we are discussing ionic bond. So what is valency? Valency is number of electrons shared, lost or gained during a chemical reaction. Now let us ponder on the first difference. First is that metals, they are electropositive in nature, that is they have got a positive charge, and the one which has got positive charge are called as cations. We already know. Why do they have a positive charge? Because these have the tendency to lose electron, whereas non-metals, they have the tendency to gain electron. So they are electronegative in nature. As you can see, the valence electrons in metals, they are 1, 2 or 3. Valence electrons means number of electrons in the valence shell, that is the large shell. Then valence electron in case of non-metals, there are 5, 6 and 7. Coming back to the valency, valency of a metal is basically number of electrons lost or shared by one atom. Whereas valency of non-metal is the number of electrons gained or shared by one atom. Now moving on to the next physical property, metals are lustrous, that is they are shiny in appearance, whereas non-metals are non-lustrous, that is they are generally dull in appearance. Now metals, they generally exist as solids, whereas non-metals can exist as solids, liquid or gases. Moving on to the next physical property, that is metals are sonorous, they produce ringing sound, whereas non-metals are non-sonorous. One special property of metal is that is they are ductile. They can be drawn into thin wires. As you can see on the screen, aluminium and copper wires are used at homes because of the property of metals being ductile, whereas non-metals are non-ductile. Malleability is another important property of metals, that is they can be hammered into very thin sheet, and gold, as you can see on the screen, is considered to be the most malleable. That is why we have got so many gold designs jewelries, because they can be hammered into thin sheets, whereas non-metals are non-malleable. Next, metals have got very high tensile strength, whereas non-metals, they snap easily, that is they can be easily broken, so they are brittle. Metals generally they are hard, whereas non-metals are soft. We have a few metals also which are soft, so we'll talk about it in exceptions. Generally metals are good thermal and electrical conductors, whereas non-metals are bad conductors of heat and electricity. Another important property of metal is that is they form ionic compounds. We'll talk about it in detail later. Whereas non-metals, they form ionic compounds with metals, and they also form covalent compounds. That is, non-metals and non-metals, they tend to form covalent compounds. Metals have got high boiling and melting point, whereas non-metals generally have low boiling and melting points. Students, we cannot group elements according to their physical properties alone, as there are many exceptions to it. Let's ponder on them. All metals are electropositive, but all non-metals are electronegative except hydrogen, which is a non-metal, but it is electropositive. Talking about metals, they are generally solids, but mercury, it exists as liquid at room temperature. All metals have got high melting and boiling point except gallium and cesium, which have got very low melting points. We know that non-metals are dull in appearance except iodine. You can see on the screen, which is lustrous, and it is actually a grayish black color crystalline solid. Carbon, which is a non-metal, it exists in different forms, and each of this form is called an allotrope. The difference in form is because of different structural arrangement. Because of the different structural arrangement, the properties also vary. It has many allotropes. One of them is diamond, which is the hardest substance despite the fact that it is a non-metal, and it has got very high melting and boiling point. Graphite is another allotrope of carbon, and it is a good conductor of electricity even though it is an allotrope of a non-metal. Alkali metals like lithium, potassium, sodium, they are soft and can be cut with a knife. They all are reactive metals. These have got low density, low melting point and boiling point. In the next video, we'll discuss about the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. Thank you students, and God bless you all.